My mind always went into like, okay, AI is gonna do really well with well-defined, not like really well-defined problems, but at least like well-defined constraints, which is like, hey, create me an image,
Yeah.
write me a copy, get this data and compare it. But now you're bringing up like it could kind of help us solve big, hairy challenges like climate change. Do you think it really can do this?
So what I think it can do, and that almost I think ties a little bit also into the d.MBA thing of like, strategic thinking, systemic thinking,
Yeah.
that you almost like, as a designer, can almost start to modularize certain things and like say like, oh, those are all the problems. And I think that machine learning can help us to solve much more complex problems. And honestly, if that's something, a tool we all can have, how amazing, right? And then it's
Yeah.
obviously the shiny thing is it can create, I don't know, a watercolor portrait of you, Ellen, and you're like, oh, this is cool because it's
Yeah.
visual, we're a visual culture, fine. But it's just like, it gets your attention and like, I get it. But I think there's so many other things that machine learning especially can help us. And I mean, I think I told you on one of our earlier calls is that I'm also advising a startup that's working in the food sector, climate
Right.
friendly food. So they do dairy and cheese. And they use machine learning to come up with, like, they can do experiments that normally would have taken, I don't know, 5 years. And with the help of ML models, they can just dial it down that they only really test and prototype the things that are not already solved. I mean, that's a designer's mindset. Like, that's the strategic mindset.
Yeah.
It's like, what are the things we know? What are the constraints we have? And what's
That's
the
interesting.
opportunity space? And I think that's where it really can shine.
Is this startup actually building its own AI, or is it kind of plugging into an existing
It's
capability?
it's using its own because also Oliver Zahn, who's kind of founded it. It's called Climax Foods, if you want to look it up. And he led data science at Google before, and he's just like, I mean, he's a master of machine learning. So they almost need to build their own ML
Yeah.
model to understand, because again, I mean, he explained it to me like really simply. And I was like, that makes sense. Like if you look at like classic dairy production, it's like, you have basically grass, so a very non-biodiverse entry point
Yeah.
into an operating system, which is the cow, to process it into milk and then cheese, right? I mean, like, so you have a very boring input, a very like hardwired processing, and then you have one kind of cheese that we know. And I mean, if you even look at it and tell yourself that you're drinking the mother milk of an impregnated other mammal, it's really weird. And he basically just said
Yeah.
like, okay, we can now use 300,000 edible plants from all over the world, come up with digital recipes and like an ML model that combines them to look at texture, taste, nutrition, and come up almost with a magnitude of milks and cheeses that have the same quality and are better, cheaper, and environmental friendly. And that's the thing where we're like, wow, that's a
That's
really good
cool.
use of ML models, right?